Hello, Matt Weaver here, and thank you so much for listening. Okay, let's get right to it. So I had a conversation with a neighbor of mine over the weekend, and it was an interesting conversation. He said to me, Matt, I have a question for you. I want to sell my home, and I'm considering either calling the agent that I've been doing business with for about 20 years or calling one of these Ibuyer platforms. And he asked me, Matt, what are your thoughts on the two? To which, of course, I said to him, well, first and foremost, thank you for asking me my opinion. I'm truly honored that I could at least weigh in on this topic. I said, the good news is that the answer to your question is rather simple. But in order for us to get to that answer, let's dissect both business models so we can get to, of course, an end conclusion. So I said to him, let's carefully start with iBuyers for a moment and understand what their model is all about. So when you think about it, an iBuyer platform is designed to come in and purchase a home at below market value, factor in all the repairs that they have to do, factor in the closing costs when purchasing, then they have to factor in the carrying cost of holding the home, all in an effort to resell. Now, interestingly enough, the average iBuyer, at least from what they report, is they hold the home for about 72 days, okay, which is a long holding time in a sense because there's cost behind that. Then they also have to factor in the cost of selling. And then on top of it, think about this, they also have to factor in profit. So with an iBuyer, they have to, number one, look at your house and say, okay, how can I buy this for below market value? How can I, in turn, factor in the closing costs of buying it, factor in the repairs that I have to make, in turn sell it, there's closing costs there as well, and make a profit in addition to the carrying costs. Wow, those are a lot of costs that have to be factored in. Let's slide over to a real estate agent here for just a moment. Okay, so an agent, a great agent, which there are many out there, an agent says, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and we're going to do a comparative market analysis and we're going to figure out what your actual market value is today. And then what we're going to do is we're going to actually put that price on it and maybe even a little bit higher. And then the key here is we're going to open it to the overall market and give maximum exposure to where the iBuyer is one single buyer, not maximum exposure. So we don't know what the market will command. With an iBuyer, one person, one entity. With an agent, the overall broad and open market. So now they go ahead and put the property for sale and open it to the market and in turn also market it. Now, here's the good news. The good news is that the agent statistically is looking for an owner-occupant of your home. Why is that good? Because this person is looking through the lens of buying the way that the property pretty much is, and any of these miscellaneous repairs, they're going to do on their own. They're not necessarily going to factor it in terms of sale price, typically. So also, being an owner-occupant, they're going to own the home and they're not going to resell it. So they're not considering, how can I sell and make a profit? They're not considering what are my next set of closing costs when selling, and so on and so forth. And lastly, agents, if you look at all the reports, real estate agents statistically get closer to market value than any other platform, whether it be for sale by owner, whether it be an iBuyer program, so on and so forth. So, when you look at this and the landscape of it all, for me personally, it's a no-brainer. I can tell you that an agent, statistically speaking, will get you a higher sales price, will get you a better buyer, and will, at the end of the day, net you more in proceeds. So my neighbor is looking at me and said, wow, this is pretty impressive information. I guess I didn't really think about it that way. He said, Matt, how and why do these iBuyer programs exist? And I said, well, that's a great question. Here's the deal. I just read an article about how they have actually been losing money. So their model is actually at a loss. Now, these companies typically have multiple verticals of business, so one vertical can lose while another makes profit. Doesn't make a whole lot of business sense, but this is how they remain and stay afloat. Can the iBuyer work in a different market? Perhaps. And what is that market? Okay, so let's go over to, let's say many years to come, there's a buyer's market per se, which means there are more sellers than buyers. Well, in that market, perhaps an iBuyer platform can actually serve a function and serve a purpose to a seller. But folks, you and I both know we are nowhere near a buyer's market in most cases and in most markets. And in fact, I happen to believe we're going to have an inventory shortage like no other. So those are my 2 cents regarding an iBuyer versus a real estate agent. I hope you found this informative. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to me, 561-864-2458, Together in Success.